Silversix is on the line with DJ Insider. How are you, mate?
Hey buddy, how are you?
Good, man. Thanks for joining us.
No worries, man. No worries.
Can we start with a little bit of background about yourself, mate? How you got into DJing, where you're from?
Well, I started DJing about 10 years ago or so. Just started making music actually before that, sort of just making mashes and bootlegs and edits and whatnot. Was doing that for a couple of years, probably since I was 15, 16. And then, just started doing the whole, nothing too, sort of pretty the standard story really, started just making CDs and mixes, just giving them out to your friends and stuff like that. And then, just sort of started, trying to get gigs, and one of my friends got us a gig. I think Platform 1 was one of the first places I played.
All right.
That was probably when I was 18.
Geez, that was pretty good because it's a pretty big club, yeah?
Yeah, it was pretty good for back then as well. It's one of my favourite venues around town, but and then just sort of started playing around a bit more. I used to do a bit of graphics work at an old DJ school, which I'm not too sure what happened to it. About, I don't know, probably when I was 17, there was a place in St Kilda called DJ MSM, and like a few of the old school heads like Danny Benici and Brewster and those guys were all working down there as like, I think tutors and that. They were doing like, I think Benici was running an Ableton 5 course or something, and
right.
they used to do classes and stuff, and I was doing a bit of their graphics work and their web stuff. And so, it was a pretty cool environment just to sort of hang around there. Just sort of got into DJing a bit more from there, and then, just the standard story. I started playing a few gigs, used to play at a backpackers bar down in St Kilda, and used to do the big long.
Yeah, what was that called?
I think it's been about 30 different names, but it was, I think, Sunset or something, and then Traffic, and then...
Traffic, yeah. Tragic, I think. Oh, yeah,
turned
Traffic.
into Tongue and Groove.
Tongue and Groove, yeah, that's the one.
The classic little venue there that used to be open till like 7 a.m. I used to do every Thursday, I think 9 till 7, like 9 p.m. till 7 a.m. and then...
Really? All right through? You went right through yourself?
Yeah. And then doing Tuesdays as well. It was just, it was just sort of anything from, I never... don't claim to play, techno when I was 15 or anything like that. I sort of played a bit of everything. And it was a really good experience to start learning DJ. You could mix anything into anything and everything with everything. So,
well, that was a great place to start then, because obviously you went from there, and what we know you for the most now is Revolver.
Yeah. That was the sort of, probably the big residency that I scored, that was sort of... It was pretty big for me to get that anyway. I was pretty stoked with that. So,
how long were you DJing before you got the residency at Revolver?
First gig, I think the first gig I got was like a Sunday Arvo, like a 3 to 7 with Radiator. That was 2008 or 2009 maybe. I actually sent, before I knew them, I used to hang in there. My friends brought me in there probably, I don't know when that was, maybe 2007 or something maybe, and they, I couldn't get out of the place with them. We used to live there every weekend, so,
as you do.
As you do,
Yeah.
So, but, you get to watch some of the, the best DJs in the country, so... I was always looking up to those guys, and then I actually sort of sent a track through to t-rek, who ended up releasing it on his label, Freak Show Disco. I think that was 2008 or 2000, I think it was the end of 2008, and from that, Boogs was playing it. It's a pretty electro track. Like, looking back now, it's, it's not something that you would play out now, but Boogs and t-rek, they were all playing it, so then Mike asked me to play a set with him, and then I think from there it just sort of turned into filling in for everyone there. I would be playing, to me, the best set in the country, which is Boogs' Sunday morning set.
Yeah, that's the one.
So filling in for that for the first time was pretty amazing, and then just filling in for whenever Mike, jumped off early, or if I was, because I was there anyway, I was just partying, so let's throw a few tracks on or something, and then started filling in for him a bit and t-rek, and started doing a few marathon sets there, filling in for people. That went on for probably a couple of years. But I mean, we also do the Macassar Fridays as well.
Yeah, that's right.
Damon Walsh and Luca Tan. And that's, I mean, a few months ago we saw our 5th birthday.
Wow,
so that's 5 years strong on the Fridays. That's once a month. Just sort of ventured from filling in for, just jamming with a few of the guys, which is, pretty special back then to me. That was, the guys I sort of really looked up to, and, then to become a part of a lineup, on a weekly basis, which was pretty, nothing I take for granted. So
yeah, and I would see you there quite a lot supporting some of the internationals that Revolver brings in.
I think some of the best ones I got to play was the New Year's Day night parties were always pretty epic. They were just sort of, and you get all sorts of internationals rocking up there. Even from the Dead Mouses and the Skrillexes rocking up. From After Summer Days and all that to, I think Nardastrom and Roundtable Nights were playing. I think Nardastrom played, then Roundtable Nights, and I played. I think I closed. That was pretty good. That was pretty good fun. But yeah, the New Year's Day night parties and just any long weekend in general, there's always, pretty exciting to play.
Awesome, mate. Who was your first musical influence?
First. Well, I used to mash up like anyone, like even hip hoppy and poppy stuff, when I was 15, 16, that's what I, sort of mashed up a bit of everything and made CDs. So it was no genre really. But yeah, coming forward a bit, it's probably, it's pretty cliche, but obviously, DJing wise, it's, I think most people in Melbourne Boogs is as good as you sort of can get, for someone to look up to, who's just he set the trends, so, but, production wise, these days I sort of look up to more, I'm a big fan of Phil Weeks and, his sort of housey stuff, which is just, it's just so current, but it could be, even his old tracks are just, they could be 10 years old, but they sound like they were made yesterday, but more in the housey dances, Perupas and those kind of guys. I really like some of that. They're on the, that real sort of fine line between sort of got a bit of a dark tip, but it's sort of, it's not techie, but it's sort of techie house sort of, but it's got a bit of musicality in it. It's not just a kick and a bass line.
Yeah. Your tracks, Benny, like you've got a few different styles you've shown us over the years. Lots of housey tracks. You've done some collaborations with DJ PP, and I'd like to chat about what music you're making now and how you've made a bit of a change, if I'm right to say that. Yeah, in the direction you're going, it's you've got a lot more emotion and it's a lot darker in your tracks now. Is that the direction you're headed?
Yeah, definitely. Like, I mean, I used to love making, even like going back 2008, 9, 10, that was probably more when electro was around a bit more. So that's sort of, what you're making. But then, it definitely went very like housey house, like a lot of horns and, saxophones and stuff like that. And then, even in between I made a bit more like, a bit more happier house songs, for the more Sunday day parties, sort of outdoor rooftop sort of vibe, it's a bit more accessible. I still like that. Like, I mean, just like, good music. So whatever that is, but.
Have you got, is there any specific tracks you're referring to there when you say that?
Not really. Just, I mean, there's probably been an era of a year or two where it was just, that all sort of come under that piano-y house and, like again with the horns and stuff. And then it sort of all moved to, in the last year or two, definitely moved towards, actually, probably over the last few years, probably definitely moving towards that more sort of techie vibe.
Yeah.
Not techno, but techie vibe, but housey, tech housey with a bit of mood in it, like a bit of melody. And
you had a pretty big hit with Love What You Feel, is that right?
Yeah. That was probably the top end of sort of the happier, accessible house side. That's probably the most accessible song I've ever made, to be honest.
Yeah, I think so, and it's great tune it is. And was that released on Sweat It Out, was it?
Yeah, that was Sweat It Out, yep. as I said though, that's probably the going from the darker stuff to the housey house stuff. That was probably right at the top of the accessible stuff.
Yeah. You had your Clockworks remix, which came so shortly after that. Is that right?
Yeah, that was such a big.
But we love both of them. You know,
two totally different ends of the scale. Yeah, so the Clockworks one was I really enjoyed that. I think it they had some problems with the release of. Yeah, I mean, I still play that in my sets. I sort of probably want to, if I think people get the most sort of probably vibe out of that one when I play it in my sets and, some of my other stuff. So, but yeah, that's sort of the vibe that I'm sort of aiming for again, the melodic, it's sort of deep, but it still chugs along. It's not too dark and boring, but it's not too happy, but it's, it's a nice happy medium.
After that release, you went on to remix Nile Rodgers and Booka Shade. That must have been pretty awesome.
Yeah. The Nile Rodgers one was pretty special to be a part of that one.
Yeah.
And that was a pretty big release as well. They had a couple of good names on that one as well. That was on CR2, and then the Booka Shade one was not long after. But that was before the Nile, sorry. But yeah, that one, I think the finished result of that one I was really happy with. It sort of again felt on that sort of techie house, but with melody. And it was just really good parts to work with on that actually.
Okay, well we'll finish up. I'll ask you one more question, mate.
Yep.
What's been your most memorable gig of your career?
Probably the first set I played at Revolver. I think was probably the.
It had to be Revolver, didn't it?
It has to be Revolver.
Yeah. It never gets old.
Yeah, that's pretty up there. I mean, I used to play some of the Sunday guest spots I used to do with. Used to play with like a percussionist and a guy named Jai. I really enjoyed playing them. The 4 or 5 hours of just, playing whatever you want, and he was on the percussion and the flute and a bit of vocals. He had a couple of cool old mics that he used to play around with. That was always probably, that was probably the one I looked forward to the most. So I did probably a few of them every few months, and then, I think you can't really go past the first gig at Revolver.
Brilliant, mate. All right, Benny, it's been absolutely awesome having you on at DJ Insider on the line. So thanks a million, man.
Thanks, mate.
Peace out.